Hi everybody, Billy Army here. 1080 After Dark. Thank you to the new subscribers. This week on the podcast, Dave and I talk about movies. We get into some alternative movie theories, and it's kind of a fun one. Open up some new topics. Please subscribe to the channel, the YouTube channel, and the podcast RSS feed. We appreciate it. And now, time for the show.
Billy, can I get a mic check from you?
Testing 1 and testing 2. Testing 1 and testing 2.
Testing 1, testing 2. Test 2, test 1.
Peanut butter 2. Pirates of Penzance. I am the very model of a modern major general. I have information, vegetable, animal, and mineral. I know the kings of England, and I quote the flights historical from Marathon to Waterloo and order categorical.
What are you saying, Billy?
I think I messed that up, but that's one of those tongue exercises. What a to-do to die today at a quarter to 2 to 2. A terrible thing to do today at a quarter to 2 to 2. Get the lips going.
What say this again?
What a to-do to die today.
What a to-do to die today.
At a quarter of 2 to 2.
At a quarter of 2 till 2.
A terrible thing to do today.
A terrible thing to do today.
At a quarter of 2.
At a quarter of 2, too.
I learned that one from Joseph Ribeiro, acting teacher over there. He's been in a lot of...
Joseph Ribeiro, he's not related to Alfonso Ribeiro, the guy who was on The Fresh Prince.
No.
I saw him in a really bad movie. That movie Ticks.
He was in that, huh?
Oh, what a
We should start the show
turd
since
of a
we're already
movie
getting
that
into
is.
it. Yeah.
Well, hold on. I'm looking for the music here. Yeah, that was a real... Oh,
was no
man,
good,
that
huh?
was a terrible movie.
Was that
terrible.
like before he was on Bel Air?
I don't know. It looks like it's around the same era, around the same time frame.
Right.
It looks like if it was around the same time. I would suspect that it was.
Yeah. He was
right
probably
on
doing movies and TV, and then the TV thing took off. You know, that show was so iconic, right?
Yeah.
Primarily because of the writing in Will Smith was like he was just a star before he was even on the air, right? With all those albums and stuff.
I think so.
Hip hop albums and things of that nature.
I don't know if this is it or not, Billy. Let's see. Yeah, that sounds like it's it. Okay. Ready?
Ready.
Here we go, Billy.
This is 1080 After Dark with Dave Michaels and Billy Army. And now 1080 After Dark.
Nice, Dave.
All right, Billy.
We are back into it. 1080 After Dark.
Is this thing recording? Doesn't look like it.
It might not be recording, but we always just go live hot to tape.
Right. Yeah, it's recording, Billy.
Because that's how real men do a podcast.
Yeah,
Isn't
dude,
that right,
we don't care
Dave?
if it's recording or not. We just pretend like it is.
Yeah. Well, is it?
Yeah, it is. Don't you see the lights?
Okay.
The lights and the things bouncing around.
I can tell that we've got some audio going. And we've got a lot of hot topics today. And mostly you're carrying this podcast because you've got some fun ones. I'm not going to open up the Comedy Vault this week. I do have a quick sub-date. And that is we are up to 77 YouTube subscribers, Dave. Gained 2 this last week. 2. So we're not maybe on the goal of setting getting to 1,000 within a year, because my math, as you know, is not that great. But I'm still optimistic because we're getting views on there. And you know what we do is I take the podcast and I upload it to YouTube, and I put some imagery and things in there. And it's fun just to have on, just to listen to, and I'm enjoying doing it. And sometimes there's a little video introduction. I might say, hey, we're talking about this or whatever. Or you never know what you might get. And I do thank those that go to the YouTube channel and subscribe. And that's all I have to say about that, Dave. The week has been stressful. I feel like...
Tell me about it, Billy.
This week has been... boy, scheduling when they get changed like at your job and then your pay date gets changed and everything, it really throws stuff off, especially when you're like a fellow like me. I don't drive a big Bentley. You're a big famous radio guy, right? No, that's not true. I mean, but you do all right, with selling of things. But I have sort of a mild manner job, in which I don't mind. But the pay is not, it's not hugely huge or anything like that. So schedule gets moved around. You go, I got to pick up my paycheck and this, that.
Oh, I hate that.
And then, just the stress of that. It just has not been a good week. And then it's been stressful. I've been feeling, although I am very grateful for one thing, Dave, and that is it is beginning. Winter is waning, as they say. It's not going to be here much longer. And because of that, I'm thankful. This winter has been brutal. I hate winter. I just got to say, I'm one for a down thumb on the winter. Probably because of age, right? I feel like as we get to be older people, maybe winter is more harsher. Do you find that to be true? As you get old age, I mean,
I don't know.
Does it matter?
I don't. I like winter. I like the cold and the rain. I like to go hiking out in it. So yeah.
What am I thinking? I'm asking the totally
fun.
wrong person. This is a person who, Dave Michaels will hike 40, 50, 80 miles in one day. You're an anomaly, okay? The average human being I need to ask, and you're not that person. But for me, I don't want to complain about it, but not big on winter. And I think moving to Palm Springs is somewhere it may be in my future. Something about Palm Springs, the desert. I don't know. There might be something to it.
Let's see. I said that I was going to tell Zach's second joke on our podcast. It's kind of nasty. I don't know if I should, Billy. I really would like to keep this a family friendly.
Oh, let's not tell it then. Yeah. Oh, you want to tell it?
I don't know. I mean, we can.
Well, how dirty is it? I mean,
can you read it there? Can you see that?
Let me see. I can look, of course.
What do you think about that?
That's not so bad. Now. That's not so bad because that's almost like junior high level, right? I mean, that word, I use that word actually in one of my comedy scripts.
Really? I hate that word. It's disgusting, but
that's why I used it in my comedy script. We should maybe talk about that at some point, but
I also don't like to use the word fart. I think it's just a nasty word. It's gross and it's not offensive, but I'd rather not use it. And this is one of those words. Actually, it kind of does mean this. Well, okay, here we go. You
teased it out now. You just have to say it.
Okay, don't blame this on me. Blame it on Zach. All right?
Don't say his last name.
I'm not. According to Zach, how does a blind gynecologist pass on knowledge? They bequeath it to others.
Yeah. That's not so bad.
Okay.
And you know why that one's kind of a good one? Because in the joke, it requires a certain level of you have to know how to spell something.
And you have to know some kind of medical knowledge to know what a queef is, I guess.
Yeah. Now, that's not that bad of a word. I feel like some words are worse than others, and I did use that word in a script of mine.
I don't like it, kids.
And this is the thing is I had an all-female band. They were I'm not going to tell it. You know what?
They weren't called that, were they?
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, with an S on the end, so it's plural.
Right.
Yeah, and they would do. And in my script, they were an all lesbian rock band that only covered AC/DC songs, and they were called
Wow.
That's a wild script and a fun one too. It's actually sort of a party comedy script.
Did the girls know what that means?
School. Well, of course, yeah. They're playing in dive bars, the characters of this of that scene, right? And of course, I mean, look, there used to be there probably still are a lot of punk rock female bands out there that use wild stuff, referring to their
like Pussy Riot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's just a takeoff on that. And it's such a and that's the other thing too, is it's such a silly word in a way.
It is silly, but it's still
right?
gross, dude.
And a lot of silly words in a way, they're just kind of funny anyways. But I agree with you on the word, the fart word. Not a big fan.
I could do without it.
Yeah. It's like, Yeah. Well, thank you,
But they
Zach.
are funny, though.
Well, thank Zach. That was his contribution to both the podcast and the radio program, and we thank him.
Boy, Billy, it's so hard to not give out the phone number. I'm used to giving out the phone number. I would have done it twice already. That pause right there was where I was about to insert the phone number, but I stopped myself because I'm a professional.
Well, it's hard to break some of the habits because the podcast is even though it's similar to doing radio in the sense that we're on the air, right? Because we don't stop and we're not going to go back and edit anything like that. Right. So it's live to tape, as they say. But yeah, we're not going live out to callers, but I would hope with time as the podcast grows that people will share it on Facebook or whatever sort of social media links. And then, we can hopefully get some comment plug-in going in the comment section of maybe the podcast feed. So we can get a dialogue open with those people that listen on the internet, topics they'd like to hear about or things of that nature. I'm very good on Facebook of following people's comments and things like that when they mention things. I do want to weave that into the 1080 After Dark podcast because a lot of the fun, I feel, is interacting with the audience, what's on their mind and what is happening. And that's the beauty of this kind of social media.
And that's what I like about radio, in my opinion, that makes radio so much, one of the advantages that it has, because to say which one is better, radio or podcast, I don't know. But
They're different.
The advantage of radio is you have the audience participation. And sometimes that's not so good. Like tonight,
Right,
you get
right.
people who just go way off topic. And so for anybody who listened to the show tonight, to Flight 1080, I had this whole thing. I asked, if you were to travel back in time and meet a caveman, what would you teach him?
Which
right?
is a fascinating sort of thought experiment.
That was kind of the secondary topic. The real topic was about time travel.
Yeah.
Now, I had prepared for hours for this show, and some clown wants to call and talk about clown noses and his newest shoes.
Yeah.
Dude, that's not
Right.
that's not cool. I did hours of prep work for that show, just like I've done for this show. I think this show is going to go very well because I did so much preparation for it.
Right.
Now, when people call and they're off topic, that makes it, you totally destroy all the time that I just put into the show. You absolutely destroy it. And if you want to watch me lose my mind, waste my time. The people that waste my time are the people who talk forever. You want to see me get mad, you just sit there and talk to me for a long time, and I will lose my mind. I don't appreciate people wasting my time. I hate it. It's the one thing that I don't have. I have very little time. It's weird because a lot of times people will say, I have more time than money, and that's not true for me. But my time is extremely valuable.
Right.
And if I spend it preparing for my show, I'd appreciate it if people would stay on topic.
Right. Which I understand.
It's not that hard to
You got-
understand.
and you got upset, and it's understandable, but you also like to be a nice fellow.
I do.
Whereas I feel like what you should have done was, because you knew it was the same caller the second time, is just maybe have a buzzer sound or just say, you're dumped. And not even give, because you kind of went off there for 30 seconds, and maybe even on live you went longer than that. I just say, do more of that. I forget that gentleman's name. He passed away a few years back, but was it Alan Combs? Just do something like, they're off topic. We as the listeners know they're off topic. Hit the buzzer, dump them, and then we're back on track. It's just like, but I think that maybe some people that hear that will go, oh, that's a rude host. But I think for those that are listening to the show,
it's equally
actually paying
rude.
attention,
Yeah.
is that they won't find that to be rude. We're moving on.
Yeah, we're moving on. Yeah, it's equally rude to call in and be off topic. But anyways, that's the radio show, Flight 1080, which this is not. This is 1080 After Dark. It's a podcast. And in this podcast, we can cuss, we can fart, we can do whatever the heck we want because we're not regulated by FCC guidelines.
That's right.
Now, preparing for this show, Billy, I have another topic. This topic is, I believe, movie fan theories. Movie fan, maybe conspiracy theories, movie fan alternate universe theories.
Yeah.
Here's an example. So during the radio show, I mentioned that one of the theories I read about was that the Flintstones and the Jetsons take place in the same timeline at the same time. And the Flintstones live, let me start off with the Jetsons. They live in the clouds where the elite live because the Earth has been basically destroyed.
Right.
And civilization here on Earth is back to the Stone Age days, which is where the Flintstones take place. While the Jetsons take place during the same time period, but they're up in the clouds away from the wretched Earthlings and away from the ugh.
Which makes sense because when we think about now for those that don't know, of course, the Flintstones or the Jetsons, is that they're animated around the same era in the 1960s. And not only that, but in the Jetsons, you never really see the ground. You don't. Everyone's living in the sky.
It's all in the sky.
It's an advanced society. They've got little bubble jet cars driving around. There's robots, there's all this. And then similarly with the Flintstones, everything's set on the ground. It's Stone Age. The animation style is similar, if not exactly the same.
Yeah, there's no advanced machinery in
And
the Flintstones.
and as we discovered, as I think about it, the one character that oddly enough pops in, and popping in is the right word, is that little green. There's a little green. I guess he's an alien or he's some sort of he rides on a little green like a ship, and he's all green. He's got like a nub on his head. He wears like a helmet. What's his name again?
Gazoo, the great
Gazoo.
I think it's the great Gazoo, not just the ordinary or the mediocre, the great Gazoo.
Now somehow that character, right, is in both television shows. That to me is very weird because the idea that he would ever even be in the Flintstones was always super weird because he would pop in and he would act almost like Jiminy Cricket or an angel devil character on Fred's shoulder, like, oh, don't do that, Fred. You
like
could
some kind of fairy godmother, godfather type character.
But and in the Jetsons, I don't remember him as well, but I feel like he played a similar role.
I don't remember him from the Jetsons, but I
Not
do remember
as
him.
well.
I remember him being in the Jetsons,
Yeah.
and I do remember him from the Flintstones. Yeah,
He was much more in the Flintstones than he was in the Jetsons.
think
But
you're right.
for me, the idea that the animators or whatever connection there is to those two shows, right, creators or animators, there certainly has to be something to be said for that theory. Yeah, and I like that theory a lot because it makes absolutely perfect sense.
Okay, so here's the next theory on my list, and that is that E.T., the extraterrestrial, was a Jedi Knight. Okay.
A Jedi Knight. Okay, now wait. Now, first off, you have to excuse my ignorance because I don't know if on the podcast we've ever mentioned this, but
This might not.
I don't know Star Wars, and
Yeah,
it really confuses me.
So,
but
I'll
I do
just-
think I know this.
I'll just cover this.
Isn't there like a Senate in one of the newer films where a lot of different alien races are there? And I guess the ET race, right, is maybe by default one of the smartest in the universe, and or there's a scene in a movie where they think he's wearing like a Sith robe or something.
Yeah,
along those
okay,
lines.
you're touching on it. Yeah, so you're vaguely familiar with it. So in the movie E.T., number one, he has a bunch of the powers that Jedis do. He can heal people. He can throw things. Telekinesis with thoughts. He can get mind control over Elliot. He can make him, do whatever he wants. He has very Jedi-like powers.
Right.
Now, on the night that they go out, have you seen E.T.?
It's been a long time, but I've seen
You're
it.
familiar enough to remember this, I hope.
I believe so,
You saw
yeah.
this clip anyways. So they're trick-or-treating, and E.T. sees a little guy dressed up as Yoda. And as he's walking by,
right.
E.T. wants to join him. He goes, home, home. He's saying, this guy's from home, this guy's from home. And it's weird because he recognizes him because there's a kid walking around like Luke Skywalker too, and that didn't get him.
Yeah.
But the Yoda costume made him feel like he was at home. Now, you mentioned that in this movie during the there's this kind of congressional meeting, and there's all these balconies, and all these races are attending this meeting.
Yeah.
And one of those races are E.T., whatever that race is. They have a seat in the Senate, and they're down there too. So E.T. does exist in the Star Wars universe.
Right, absolutely.
So it is very possible. I mean, and the race was advanced enough to, have a UFO go visit Earth, but also to be in the Senate.
Yeah.
It's very possible that E.T. was a Jedi Knight. If it's just a different movie about a different Jedi.
Yeah.
But the E.T. was a Jedi. And
Well,
that's how
certainly-
those powers weren't alien. Those powers were Jedi.
That's interesting thing.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly, obviously, there's a connection because of both the writers, Spielberg and everything. But I would say that if we rewatch the movie E.T. with that in mind, maybe it changes
That's
how
what I'm
you
saying.
see it.
All
Yeah.
these movies that I've selected
Yeah.
are very, very popular movies, and when you watch the movies again, it's going to change the way you watch these. Like this one, for instance. Boy, I'm going to start off with Grease first because this one is really cool. In the beginning of Grease, I haven't seen the movie, but this is what I understand. In the beginning of Grease, John Travolta is telling his friends how he saved a girl from drowning. And that girl was, what's her name, Sally? I don't remember what her name is, but
I can't remember. Grease.
Olivia Newton-John's character, right? She's the
Okay.
main character besides John Travolta. He saved her from drowning. Now, at the end of the movie, again, I don't remember this, you see them both taking off, John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John, their characters, in a car, and they're driving off into the sky into heaven.
That's right. Yeah.
And so the theory is that Olivia Newton-John's character died in the drowning. She drowned. John Travolta could not save her.
Yeah.
And that whole scene, that whole movie is just her fantasy, the last thoughts before she dies. And that's why at the end you see her going off into heaven.
Yeah, I don't know if I buy that one as much.
Doesn't that creep you out? Isn't that creepy though? That show,
Yeah,
that whole
it's-
thing that you're
it
watching.
makes it too creepy for me.
It's
yeah.
super creepy, dude, because the show takes
Yeah.
place, it's just a high school movie. Oh, it's just a high school musical. No. She's dead. Through that whole movie, she's dead. And this is all just how she wishes life could have
For me,
been.
that one doesn't work
It's really
as well.
sad.
For me, that one doesn't work as well because it's just on the one scene. The theory is just based on the one scene. Kind of like when I've heard the theory about the Wizard of Oz, where a person will say that actually Glinda the Good Witch is the evil witch. Because the reality is, look, she didn't say to Dorothy right away, look, you could just click your heels, go back home, right?
Yeah.
Makes her go on this
trapped
big,
her there.
long, right, you know? And so when you really think about it, you go, yeah, there's something to be said. But when it's only in just one part of the film, I feel like there's not much to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how about this one then? Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
That's a great movie.
That is a
Fun
great
one.
movie. Yeah, and I'm vaguely familiar. I know I've seen that movie several times. So, but I don't remember watching it this way. You've seen Fight Club, yes?
That's a good movie, too. Absolutely. Chuck Palahniuk, I think, was the writer of that.
So the crazy theory about Ferris Bueller is that Ferris Bueller is not real.
Okay.
That
I like these
Ferris
kind of
Bueller
theories.
is the alter ego of that kid, the nerdy kid, who could never do anything right. His father hated him, all that stuff. But Ferris Bueller did everything right. He could never do anything wrong. And even when he did do something wrong, it always fixed itself. He had the hot chicks. He had all the right things to say. He had everything that this nerd did not have.
Right.
And and the theory is buffered and it's bolstered by several scenes in the movie. And again, I got to watch this again. But one scene is where the guy is sitting in bed and he's saying, oh, my life sucks. I wish I was dead. The phone rings and it's Ferris Bueller. He's saying, no, you don't wish you're dead. Come on, let's get up. Let's go. And you think, how could Ferris know? How did he read his mind? And that happens several times. It happens several times throughout the movie.
What you're saying, yeah.
When you go, and it makes you think, you know what? I have to watch that movie again because it might be that Ferris Bueller is an imaginary character that helps him build up the confidence to get the pretty girl at the end or whatever. But I have to watch that again. But that is the theory that Ferris Bueller was not there. Ferris Bueller was a figment of his imagination. I've got to watch it again.
That one might prove to be interesting to look at viewed through that lens. Absolutely. Well, of course, you mentioned Fight Club. Well, of course, it's probably well known by now that in Fight Club, it is his alter ego.
Yeah, it's his alter ego.
So when they shot the film, and for those that haven't ever seen Fight Club with this in mind, is that rewatch the movie after you've seen it with the reveal, right, of what's really happening. Rewatch the movie and see how it's shot and see the genius of how they shot it, because the film still makes perfect sense. It still makes and that for a director that pulled that off, that's a fun movie, actually.
The Sixth Sense is like that too.
Yes,
and,
it is.
And I heard,
yes, it is.
The scene that really, really sells it to me. Somebody said, "Hey, you need to watch this scene," and that's when Bruce Willis goes to meet his wife, and he doesn't show up because he's dead. He doesn't show up, and he's talking to her, and she's ignoring him. He thinks that she's giving him the silent treatment because he's late to their anniversary dinner or whatever it is. He had to stay with the client, and he thinks she's giving him the silent treatment. He's saying, "Oh man, this is it. The marriage is over. She can't stand me anymore." She just doesn't even pay attention to him. Well, she doesn't pay attention to him because she doesn't see him because he's dead.
Right.
He sees her and he's interacting with her, but she doesn't see him.
Yeah, it's a great scene.
Oh man, dude,
We've
just
got some great
holy
scenes.
cow! And so, I think that Ferris Bueller is done in that vein as well. You don't get it, and they never even revealed it. If that is the true plot,
No, right.
Who knows what the writers were thinking though? But
Right.
and does it even matter? And if that's
No,
not
it
what the
doesn't.
matter intended, does it even matter? I mean, if that's the way I want to watch the movie now,
I would say
Shoot,
that
that
sometimes
sounds like fun.
maybe directors or even writers will couch hidden meaning because of maybe the time or not. But maybe, I don't know if Ferris Bueller is one of those. Maybe it could be. But certainly those that look at movies like The Wizard of Oz, for example, there's a lot of takes on what that movie really means.
yeah, and
what it means to the guy behind the curtain and all this sort of like, does it have more to do with social engineering? There's a lot of takes on it. And similar, there's a lot of takes on what I think is a more black and white movie on the face of it is The Shining, right?
I was
But
just
people
gonna
have
bring
got
that
a
up.
lot of theories about a lot of theories
dude,
about The Shining.
did you hear the one about how Jack Nicholson got out of the food freezer?
No, I don't think so. no.
Remember how he's trying to hit Wendy, or he's trying to kill Wendy, and she hits him with the baseball bat, knocks him out, and then she drags him into the
Yeah,
freezer
meat
and
locker.
locks it in the meat locker.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Theory is that Danny, the little kid, he's talking to his finger. Well, the character in his finger, his name is Tony.
Right, Tony. Yeah, Tony.
Yeah. Now, when Wendy is dragging Jack's body into the meat locker, and you see Jack, he's banging on the door. If you look behind him, you'll see a box of Frosted Flakes
Okay.
with Tony the Tiger on there.
Oh.
Now, the idea is, the theory is that the kid is so powerful that he used Tony the Tiger to unlock the meat locker to let Jack out.
Really?
Yes. And the other theory is that the house itself is alive and the house let him out to finish the job. Dude,
Yeah.
I totally got to watch that again.
There's a lot of that's one of those ones where The Shining, because of the nature of the material, I feel like there's so many theories on YouTube. You can go watch a theory on the take of it and watch it and have just a mind-blowing experience. But
Yeah, dude.
for me, I still say that Shining is a very simple movie. I say that the house is haunted.
I'm not so sure it's that simple.
You don't think so?
No, I think there's so many complexities and so many things that are left to interpretation. I think it is absolutely genius.
I think what the movie, let me just try to sum it up real quick, like what they call an elevator pitch, because everyone's seen the movie, right? It's iconic. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's worth checking out, obviously.
Absolutely.
It's about a guy who's a writer, right? And he goes to this place to stay, to be a caretaker. He's a writer. He's a kind of an struggling, maybe ex-alcoholic. And he's got this kid that's kind of weird, maybe partially psychic, right? Mm-hmm. And they go out to this house, and he just loses his mind because he doesn't have a good grip on his own spirituality, and the house maybe is haunted. And there's energy certainly in the universe. The movie has a lot to do with that, right? About psychic abilities.
Wouldn't it make
and the boy is maybe a conduit between two worlds. And it fits the fashion of a classic horror film, and that is the monster dies and the little boy gets away, right? And it's just, I mean, I don't know.
Back to
seems simple to me.
Jack getting out of the meat locker and the house being alive. Let's go to another iconic scene, and that is the end scene where you see that's panning away from the picture on the wall, and you see Jack Nicholson there.
Yeah,
at the party,
the caretaker, whoever, right?
Whoever it was.
The theory is that maybe he's the caretaker over and over again.
Over and over again.
Yeah.
And wouldn't that fit into the idea that the house is alive? And the house is what's keeping the cycle going. It's the house. It invites new people. It puts them in there, and it replaces them on the wall. It's the house. The house itself is alive. And when I'm thinking about this, I envision burning that house down. If you were to burn it down and it was alive, would you hear it scream? What would that house do? Where would its soul go? What would that look like? What would be happening there? Just, it's crazy, dude.
But see, I
imagine the house screaming.
But the genius of the movie, maybe much like Fight Club, right, is that if you watch it, you have to realize that even if the house is quote unquote haunted, right,
alive, I'm saying
right,
yeah.
Isn't most of what is experienced that goes on in the film itself, the action that takes place, is manifest through Jack's character, who at best is barely holding on to his sanity, and then the boy who is slightly psychic. So it's not so much that the house is doing anything as is it's influencing those around it, right? And that's maybe what that movie's about, because what about the wife, right? She doesn't have any problems in the house.
That's
other than dealing with the two of them.
Another theory is that she's imagining the whole thing.
Okay, that she's imagining.
She's imagining the whole thing.
Huh? Why do you think that theory?
I haven't studied.
Okay.
We should do this, Billy. You and I, for maybe the next podcast, we should watch The Shining and just write down notes and just see what happens.
Yeah, that's fine.
I don't want to get too far on The Shining because I have other things to get to.
No, I understand that. I mean, we could talk about it because I think a lot of the theories that are out there are kind of, they're fun to theorize about.
They're fun.
But I think usually stuff that it's on the face of it, it's either there or it's not. In the case of like Fight Club, for example, which the genius of that movie is when you rewatch it, the director knew and put it in there, right? And so when you relook at it, similar to, excuse me, the one about the boy who sees dead people. What was that?
Sixth Sense.
Sixth Sense, right? And that was really the only movie that director ever did that was really great.
No. He did Signs, which was fantastic. That's M. Night Shyamalan.
I feel like he's a director that he came out strong, but then it's kind of a one-trick pony. He has the twist ending to things, right? And Sixth Sense was maybe his masterpiece, and that was one of his earlier pieces of work. And because when you rewatch the movie, you go, oh yeah, it all makes perfect sense when you see it in there. But with things like The Shining, a lot of these theories, I have to force myself to see what they're putting in there. Right?
Do you dislike that?
I dislike it because it
Why?
doesn't work. Because the genius of the fun of it is that the theory works kind of perfectly. Like, for example, the idea of the Flintstones and the Jetsons and the green guy between two realities, it ties them together. It works perfectly.
Yes, but if that's not how the creators invented it, then we're wrong. See, this is the way this is the way I was looking at it, Billy. You know, so let's say that you could talk to what's his name, Peter Jackson. Who directed The Shining?
King Kong was Peter Jackson. The Shining was Kubrick.
Kubrick. Okay, so let's say you could bring him back from the dead and talk to Kubrick, and he said, "Dude, all these guys are nuts. That's not what I meant at all." Well, you know what, Stanley? Who cares really? Who really cares about how he intended it? I bought the movie. I bought the purchase. You know, I bought the ticket. I'm going to go watch it. I'm going to interpret it the way I want.
Oh, right.
If I buy a car, I'm going to, have it set up the way I want. If I buy a house, I'm going to fix it the way I bought it. Yeah. It's my idea now, and I'm going to enjoy it the way I want to. So even if he didn't intend it to be that way, it's just fun. And I think it makes makes movies so much more fun to watch, dude. I can't believe it.
Okay,
this topic has been fantastic. It's been a real eye opener for me.
No, I like that one, but I like to get to the whatever the intention of the actual
that matters too. Sure,
filmmaker, whatever.
But how much does it matter? If you enjoy the film watching it more this way than that way.
Well, I absolutely agree with you, because I would say with a lot of movies and I just can't follow them, and they'll become big successes and everything. And I have no desire to follow them. I mean, like, for example, people will make fun of like Steven Seagal movies, right? And I guess, I've never seen a Steven Seagal movie in my life, but apparently they're absolutely terrible. They're awful, right? And yet there's a market for them.
Sure, and mindless violence.
Yeah,
who doesn't like
the
that?
scripts are totally illogical. They're no good. They're just. But they're fun to watch.
Yeah, that's all that matters.
And so I just look at and that's again why I like to take things more on the face value of them. And I like when the theories are just so obvious. You go, of course, why didn't I think of that? Right? Those are the theories that I think are the most fun. Yeah.
Here's another bizarro theory. This is not about movies, but this is about TV.
Okay.
And Murder, She Wrote.
Ah.
Here's a theory. Jessica Fletcher killed all those people and framed others for it. There's no way that a lady just happens to be involved in a murder week after week.
Well, there'd be no TV show if they didn't, have that. But
you tell me that she wouldn't be on the suspicious list. I mean, come on, lady.
That one makes perfect sense.
30 years and 30 murders in 3 years. I think you might be connected somehow.
Yeah, that was a wild show. Boy, that was on for a long time. Yeah.
The Jetsons and the Flintstones are actually in the same time period.
Well, they could be. I like that one. Makes perfect sense.
The signs include that Flintstones celebrate things like Christmas and other holidays, which doesn't make sense, and the Great Gazoo alien appears in both series.
No, wait, what's this about Christmas?
Oh, because if it was back in the caveman days, they wouldn't be celebrating Christmas because Jesus wasn't born.
But
then.
They do celebrate it.
So that's more proof that this is happening in current modern times.
Right. That's right. Yeah. Very interesting.
Wow, dude.
The Great Gazoo. Yeah.
Here's a crazy theory about. Now, my son watched Courage the Cowardly Dog. Have you ever seen that cartoon?
Courage the Coward. Yeah, I do. That was a great cartoon.
Yeah, it's very popular. My son has always told me that I should watch it, and it looks fun. I mean, it looks bizarre too. It looks like something out of the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, the animation's fun, and it's always about like a scary monster that comes out, and the dog has to save the day.
Right there. Yeah. So, the monsters in Courage the Cowardly Dog are regular people, but seem monstrous from his perspective since he's cowardly. Oh. Also, they live in the middle of nowhere, because his owners never take him out. So that's how he views the world. He views the world as scary and other people as monsters.
Oh, okay.
They're not actually monsters. That's just how he sees them.
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah.
That's a fun show to begin with.
Yeah.
But yeah, great characters.
Here's a theory about Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Oh, the original, of course.
Yes.
Right? Not that Fakakta remake.
No.
Digitally, just throw that thing away if you got a copy of it.
Now, here's a short. I think I might have to expand on this. It says Willy Wonka knew what he was doing. There was no seat for Augustus aboard that boat. He knew that Augustus was going to die.
Yeah,
it was going to fall in there.
Yeah, I like that one. I believe that to be true. Also,
so
makes perfect sense.
Yeah, when you think about, I mean, there were so many traps in there. It was like he was trying to kill these kids, and they all disappeared. I mean, for what we knew, they were all dead until the end. They showed up.
Right, but my theory is that, again, this one's kind of on the nose. That does make sense. Look, Willy Wonka had to teach those kids a lesson, right?
Right.
I mean, he had to teach them. By the end of the movie, even he got upset with the kid. You stole the fizzy lifting drink. This, that. He had to test their character on a heavy way. Now, I like to think that maybe the boy survived the chocolate vat, falling out, but. When a movie doesn't go back to it and address it, though, you do have to wonder that maybe. Now, wait, which kid was that first falls out? Was it the real bad one?
Augustus is the little heavyweight German kid, fat German kid.
Yeah,
who likes chocolate, and he's eating the chocolate, and he falls in, and then he gets stuck in the little tube, and it builds up a bunch of pressure and just launches him right out of there.
So the theory is that he offed all of them.
That he wanted to kill all those kids. Yeah, that was his goal, was to kill all the kids. And as a matter of fact, when you look at when the kids first get there and they're looking at the disclaimer, the thing they have to sign. Yeah. What is that called? Is that disclaimer?
Yeah, just like a disclaimer. Yeah.
In case you get hurt, you won't sue them.
I don't know.
I think there's a name for
I want to say non-disclosure agreement. That's more of a show business term. But
yeah. But anyways, there's this contract that they have to sign saying, hey, you're going to be exposed to all these dangers, and
right. A waiver. Yeah,
a waiver.
Sign a waiver, right? Like if I die, your relatives can't sue me and things.
Right.
Yeah,
a waiver.
So what you're saying is, it's not so much that those traps were to teach them a lesson; it was to get rid of them,
to kill them.
But the traps didn't work effectively.
I guess not.
Like that egg thing that what's her name falls down and.
Yeah, this is a theory that I would love to watch that movie. You don't have to give me an excuse to watch Willy Wonka.
No, I wouldn't.
I will gladly do it.
It's a good movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Crazy theory about Scooby-Doo. Not the movie, because they did make a movie, but this is about I guess it could cover that too. Scooby-Doo is a show about draft dodgers during the Vietnam War.
What?
They're draft dodgers.
No, that's draft dodgers during the Vietnam War, because they have that hippie van and Shaggy's Shaggy.
Have you seen
smoking
who's Velma? That chick with the orange.
Velma's the shorter one, I think.
And the glasses.
Yeah, that's Velma.
Have you seen how hot they're making her?
No, I have not, because I guess they're doing. Is there a new show now or something?
I think so, and she is like smoking hot. Like,
I don't know.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like that show has had sort of a comeback, I guess. The original, I suppose, was fun. I mean, it just was. The only theory I can think of is that I just can't imagine what it would. What about the idea that it's the same monster over and over again? Because I always catch the same guy. They say it's Farmer Johnson, and he's been hanging out down by the creek and all that. It's always the same plot, always. Right?
He's been hanging out down by the dock.
Whatever he's doing, yeah. That show was fun, but it was not. Yeah, it's just. And then when they started getting into the idea of like, here's a good one, for example, that ties a lot of shows together: the Globetrotters. How many cartoons were they on? They were on like the what?
That was a hot thing back in the 70s, I think.
They appeared on a lot of cartoons. Yeah, and certainly that was one of them. But Scooby-Doo. So what else is the theory on that one?
That's it. That they were draft dodgers. That's all I read.
That they're draft dodgers. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it is a cartoon.
It is.
Right?
Yeah. What do you want from me? The movie House. The TV show House. Have you ever seen that show?
That's what the doctor.
I think so.
Yeah, it was a very popular TV show on for years. I know of it. I've seen a number of episodes. Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know if this makes any sense to you, but here we go. House died, and I guess that was the doctor's name.
Right.
House died in the fire in the final episode. The last 10 minutes, where he rides off into the sunset with his best friend Wilson, is his final hallucination. That's his final thought before dying, is him taking off with his friend.
Huh. And that's in the final episode, they're saying?
I guess so, yeah. I didn't
catch the final episode. It would make sense in some weird way that if there was a fire that they would hint that maybe he didn't survive. Because his character was such a pessimist in a way, right? And so the idea that maybe he didn't survive something, I don't know. Endings for iconic, that was kind of an iconic TV show. Endings are really kind of tough, and I didn't catch any of that series.
I think I'll watch the ending of that. I don't think I want to watch the series.
Well, just watch like maybe just one episode, because the character is such a powerful character that every episode is kind of, unfortunately kind of too similar. A lot of television series shows end up being like that. It seems like network television, but it was a great character. And every episode, the character is faced with sort of moral dilemmas, right? And his character wants to be the sort of A-type, I only believe in logic, it has to be this way, and I'm the smartest guy in the room at all costs. And it's fun to watch that,
The final crazy movie theory is about the Blair Witch Project.
Now, that's also considered by now to be sort of a iconic independent film, yeah.
The theory is that there was two guys and a girl in this movie, right? They went off to go find this witch that they had heard about.
Yes.
Was that it was a trap. It was a trick to get the girl out in the woods so that they could murder her.
The girl.
The girl, yes.
Okay.
And so it wasn't so much about hunting the witch. It was a trick to lure her out to the woods so that they could do whatever.
Huh.
But when they did get out to the woods,
yeah,
they themselves were murdered.
Right. So I'm confused though. What's the difference?
There was no witch. There was no witch. There was nothing supernatural. This was just tricks that they're playing on the girl until they murdered her. But little did they know that they themselves were going to get murdered as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. That theory, actually, that take on it kind of holds up well, because the plot is so loose, and it's just done with handheld cameras, not to ruin it, that if you were to watch it with that in mind, that does make perfect sense. Yeah. Which in some ways makes the movie kind of more horrifying. Yeah. I have a hard time watching that one because all the unsteady camera. It's too jarring.
It did not bother me at first, but now it does bother me. Yeah, that would be hard to watch again.
Yeah. I mean, but at the time when it came out, that was the appeal of it. It was the idea they looked, hey, it's some found footage, right? It's what they call like a found footage horror movie. And by now that's like a subgenre alone, because of that movie now. There's whole movies made that are just on found footage, what they call it. Like, have you seen any of the movies now, Dave, where it'll be like they'll cut away to some security footage, like, ooh, there's a ghost in the house, and then they speed up the shot, right? That's all because of Blair Witch, that style of filmmaking.
Absolutely, dude. Yeah, that was very influential and an absolute ground.
Yeah, it was a huge
breaking movie, a pace-setting movie, whatever you want to use, but definitely an important movie.
Yeah, it gives me a headache though.
Yeah, I can see that. Like I said, it does the same thing to me now.
Yeah.
So as I'm watching this, Billy. And I don't know how I ended up on that topic, but I've been doing a lot of looking for movies to watch. There's so many movies, Billy. Holy cow. I wonder if you count how many movies. Let's see if Siri knows.
Oh, it's an incredible amount, yeah.
Hey, Siri, how many movies exist in English?
Oh, it's going to be an enormous number. You might not even be able to come back to you with a number.
Here's what I found.
It's been estimated there are approximately 500,000 movies.
That's it? I would have thought that number would be higher,
me
actually.
too.
That might be off. But certainly the amount of material that's available is just absolutely incredible. Great. Yeah.
So, I mean, who do you watch? How do you watch things? I mean, what do I do? What types of movies do I watch? What am I looking for in a movie? Well, one of the things I look for is actors, right? And I'm starting to get into this more and more. And the actor that I've chosen to focus on now, two of them actually, and it's because of the one of the podcasts that we did was about the Private Eyes.
Yeah.
Don Knotts and Tim Conway. So I've been studying a lot about Don Knotts.
He's great, huh?
Oh man, the guy is fantastic, dude.
Yeah,
that guy was so talented. It was absolutely amazing how funny that guy was. Just great. So Some of the things I'm learning about him is that he was a hypochondriac.
Hypochondriac, yeah.
Hyper.
Oh, hyper. I don't know what that is. What is that?
I don't know either, but I know that hyper and hypo, one means,
yeah,
overactive, the other means underactive. So he was overactive in thinking that he had a disease. Oh. He was raised by his mother and father. His father was very, very mentally ill, was a paranoid schizophrenic. I mean, freaking nuts. Used to beat him, beat his mom, threatened to kill him, held a knife to his throat. I mean, just violent, extremely violent person.
And that would have been what, growing up, he grew up, in the 1930s maybe?
Something like
20s
that.
20s or 30s, yeah.
Just really, really just messed up his head, boy. Just really messed up. So when his dad died, that's when he came out of his shell and became the Don Knotts that we all know. But up until that point, he was not like that at all. So I think somehow that mental illness carried on to him in the form of hypochondriacism or whatever that is.
Yeah, hypochondriac.
So one of the things about Don Knotts is he was a really nice guy, and the way he acted on stage and in the movies is kind of the way he acted in real life. That was not so much an act as it was just an embellishment of what he already was.
Right.
Everybody loved him. Everybody loved him. But when things got rough, as they do in Hollywood, you got it's feast or famine. You either got lots of jobs or you ain't got no job. He would, when things were tough, he would think that he was sick, and it drove people to, it drove his wives to leave him. And
I see. I didn't know that.
I'm learning a lot of stuff about Don Knotts. And Tim Conway. Don Knotts and Andy Griffith, dude, you talk about a friendship. Holy cow, dude. Andy Griffith was just unbelievable. Nothing but respect for that guy and Don Knotts.
Yeah.
And Tim Conway, I'm learning more and more too, was a great friend to Don Knotts.
Interesting, yeah.
And they're so fantastic. I heard a song that they did together, and it's about friendship. And when you hear them sing this song together, you can hear that they're friends. I mean, you can really hear it. And I like that.
Yeah.
And I want to see more of that. I want more of that just wholesome goodness. You don't have to tell bad jokes to make things funny. It doesn't need to be cutting adult humor. It can just
be entertaining.
Entertaining and funny.
Yeah, well, you know what? Like, there's the era of what they called the variety show, right? And maybe the 1950s. And then Carol Burnett brought that back. And, of course, Tim Conway was part of that cast. And so the era of that, maybe we haven't seen that in recent times, but I think that it will come around again, and we'll see things of that nature, But certainly that era of comedy and stuff like that, entertainment, it's maybe considered like old hat, but it's actually more difficult to do, and people just don't realize it. And when we see like live shows done, it is appreciated. And when we see live shows done on network television, the ratings go up and stuff like that. It's harder to do. And the era of the digital, like even this podcast, like right now, if you're listening to this, well, you could be listening to like a million other things, right? And so the idea everything has to be salacious all the time has to grab everybody. It's hurt entertainment in big ways, because like it might seem silly to come out, or like at the beginning of this podcast when we were doing those that tongue twister, right? Like that Pirates of Penzance from that movie, which I'm not big on musicals, right? I'm really not hot on them. But as an actor, you learn something like that to warm up. And then you go, well, like there was guys that could perform and ladies that could go out and perform like stuff like that and complex dance and acting. And you don't see a lot of that. Now you turn on the TV, it's like the Kardashians, and
shaking their booty like Stimpy.
Maybe, yeah, exactly. And like maybe things can be interesting just for the sake of the train wreck of it, but it's more fun to, like we're talking about now, getting into like film theory, right? And maybe watch this and trip out on that with a different take on it. Is maybe, let's try to use our brains more. And I would say that, like you blew my mind, and this is something that never occurred to me, is that I didn't realize that Tim Conway, right? Wrote that script, The Private Eyes.
Yeah, dude.
That's a great screenplay.
Yeah.
That's a great, like, even today, if you were to take that screenplay and remake it, I think it'd be funny. I think it would work. And that is the kind of stuff that holds up, and you don't see that a lot. Now you see a movie, and the jokes have to do with what's happening right this second. They don't hold up.
I think that movie would still be funny if Tim Conway did not overdo his comedy.
Right.
It makes it buffoonish, but if he had just dialed it back 2 notches, that movie would still be funny today, just as funny today.
Yeah.
But him doing that, it's kind of outdated. That's okay. I get it. But I think he ruined that movie. He
Wow,
it's
that's
a shame.
A harsh criticism.
I know it's a harsh criticism.
I say it passes.
I like Tim Conway.
I say it passes.
I'll give it a pass. Yeah, but that movie could have been so much better. But Tim Conway going over the edge, over the top, just I think held the movie back.
I understand what you're saying. It's a fine line in comedy stuff, but it's a good movie.
I watched recently, since I am into this Tim Conway and Don Knotts thing. I watched The Heavyweight or The Prize Fighter, which I used to love as a kid. I forgot all about it till I saw it's free on YouTube right now. I saw it as I was flipping through the YouTube thing. Like, oh, great! I watched it, and again, Tim Conway, dude, his buffoonery just
his buffoonery. I like how you say that.
Ruined a good movie because Don Knotts is a straight up professional.
I've never heard of this. He plays a fighter in it, a boxer or something.
Tim Conway plays a boxer. Yes,
Tim Conway
with a gnarly right.
Okay.
Right hand is the only thing that he has, and even then, he's just a buffoon, dude. There's no way he could it's just so. It's dumb.
Right.
But he ruins it, and it's a shame because they're so funny together. It's a shame that happened. But anyways, back to the Private Eyes. I learned today or yesterday. Remember the Wookalar?
Yeah, of course. At the end of the film, yes.
So there was supposed to be a second movie.
There was,
yes.
Wow.
And there was going to be the hunt for the Wookalar.
Oh, wow.
And it was going to be these guys looking and hunting down the Wookalar. But
that would have been a great movie.
At this point, Don Knotts had vision problems. He started to suffer from macular degeneration or an eye cancer.
I see.
Which made it very hard for him to perform things that he needed to. So he turned it down not because he couldn't do it, but because he thought that his inability to perform at top notch, at top level, would hold back Tim Conway's comedy. So he didn't want to hold back Tim Conway by being this guy who needed to be helped around. He didn't want that. Wow. He wanted his friend to do well, and all he could do was to hold his friend back. So he turned it down. But there was supposed to be a second movie. Yeah,
that's amazing. It's too bad that he didn't try to go for it. But because at that time, Don Knotts, later on he appeared in a couple of films.
Yeah.
But that he was a much older man at that point. I wonder if that's the real reason it stopped him, because that's a strange. I'd like to hear more about that.
So later on in his career, the last movie that he did was, I think it was called The Sex God.
I've never even heard of that one.
Many people have not. And this, so it's his days of Andy Griffith are over. The days of that crazy silly character, those are gone. Vietnam is here. People are just not into that. They don't want to see that kind of just family friendly stuff. They're not into. America's in a sort of a darker mood. Yeah. There's this kind of sexual revolution that's going on, so they tried to reimagine him. They tried to reinvent him. And in this movie, he plays a Playboy-like character, a Hugh Hefner-like character, who I think he starts a magazine and doesn't really like it. Somehow he starts off in this kind of gritty sexual thing, and then he turns out to kind of like it, and he's getting more and more chicks. And when you watch scenes in this, you can hear him talk about sex, and he's saying like, "Wow, I never knew that I'd be banging so many chicks." It's weird. It's weird to hear him say it. I tried to find some so that I could play.
And what year was this movie about?
Just by judging from the colorization of it, I would say mid-70s.
Oh, mid-70s. Okay, all right. Yeah. That's very strange, because I was thinking more towards the end of his career, because one of the last films he ever made was Pleasantville.
Pleasantville, dude. Yeah. Now I wanted to bring that up. Do you know anything about Pleasantville?
I've seen it a few times, and I think it's a real fun movie to watch, and it's a good script.
Is he a time traveler?
Boy. You know what? I can't remember the movie that well enough to remember how he appears in the. Yeah, we'll have to come back to that next week. And
he interacts with the person from inside the TV.
Right, he's interacting from inside the television, and I can't remember if it's a hallucination or not. But because Pleasantville, just on the face of it, it's sort of like a long Twilight episode, Twilight Zone episode.
Yeah,
right?
that's what it looks like. A
And
long
it's a
Twilight
fun,
episode.
movie, but I'm gonna have to watch that one, maybe come back
Yeah,
to it, because
me too.
he is in that, and that's one of his last roles.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of is great because the movie takes place in what's this idyllic 50s town. Of course, he was known for being the sheriff,
Yeah,
but it's not related in any way. It's just him playing a character
Mm-hmm.
in a town setting, and he's a much older man at that point. And yeah, it's a fun. That's interesting, though. It blows my mind that there was a second script. I wonder if there's a script that actually exists.
I don't know.
I'm gonna have to look into that, see if I can find the script that might be floating around. Sometimes you can see copies.
Speaking of script, dude, I think this would be a fantastic topic for the show, for Flight 1080. And we probably shouldn't discuss it here, but let me just bounce it off of you. And so the people listening to the podcast might send us some emails or some ideas. I told you about an idea that I had for a play, a script that we could do, some kind of live bit that we can do, where somebody has thrown little sea monkeys.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Somebody has thrown them down the drain or flushed them down the toilet, and it goes out to the nuclear-powered, in this case, sewage treatment plant in Watsonville.
Yeah.
And these things grow to monstrous size, and who the hell knows what happens. But that would be the start. Now, Tim Conway and Don Knotts wrote some of the scripts for some of the movies they did. I don't remember which movies, but they both had hands in writing these things. It only took them a few days because they were so natural at it. They were
maybe more than a few days. I've written scripts. It takes more than a few days, but yeah.
No, that's what they said. 3
That's-
days
oh,
for one
really?
of them, yeah.
The fastest I've ever written a first draft was a weekend. It took me 2 days.
Yeah, they said 3 days. Tim Conway said it took him 3 days
It
to
can
write.
be done,
I don't
yeah.
remember which movie. But anyways, I was thinking, boy, it would be great to have those guys to be there and watch those guys just bounce each other's off. Because I guarantee
What do you mean? I could write. You and I could actually
Well,
flesh
this
out
is
a
what I'm
script on the
this is what I'm
podcast
talking
and
about.
write one right
This is
here.
what I'm talking about, Billy. So imagine all the weird stuff that they came up with. Probably a lot of it had to be just thrown away because it was
Of
just too
course.
nutball.
Sure.
Like those guys together. I mean, just you can imagine. So what if we try to write this script and we start off with the idea that these sea monkeys go by this radiation plant in the Pajaro River, Watsonville. That's where we start off.
Yeah.
And then in the show, we open it to the audience and we have them call in with ideas. How should we finish this script?
Oh,
and
yeah.
people would call in with their ideas and we can come up with this team,
Like a choose your own adventure.
a choose your own adventure, but we would come up with an adventure that was written by everybody.
Right.
And then you and I, and maybe somebody else, we would act this out. But
I understand.
I think that we can get a lot of good ideas to put something really special together.
Yeah. We should try it out.
Yeah, I
It'd
think
be fun
that-
to do,
that'd
no
be fun.
doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sea monkeys, and I got some ideas for that.
Yeah,
no doubt.
I think that would be a lot of fun. So that's something I think we should probably try on Flight 1080.
We should definitely try that out, no doubt. But I see, the idea of like of brainstorming or fleshing out a script. We should do that. Try it out on one podcast. We can just sit here and do that because I've written 3 scripts. I've helped out on different screenplays and stuff like that. And the art of just the format alone, in some ways, because you're limited in a script, right? And that is by what? You're limited by very simple things. It has to have what? It has to have a beginning, middle, and end.
Yeah.
So if a story has a beginning, middle, and end, then it has to have like a beginning, middle, and end. And so you have to think to yourself, what's the beginning, what's the middle, and what's the end? And then of course there's only a
Brilliant, Billy.
number. But here's the other thing is you have to think, well, if a screenplay is 90 pages long, that's what a typical script is.
Mm-hmm.
Then it has to have what? 3 things, beginning, middle, and end. Now, if we take 30 pages and we divide it by 3, beginning, middle, and end, how many pages is that?
30 each.
Yeah. So when you start to think about it like that, the beginning of the script is 30 pages, middle, and you can break stuff down.
Is
Actually,
that the way you should do? Is that the way it's done?
I can show you why the best scripts in films break down, like even though they don't mean to, they'll break down into scenes and into acts like that. Like most films, if you're watching it, where the action really ramps up is about minute 28 to 29, and that's the end of the first act. That's page 30. I mean, modern filmmaking and screenwriting and the best stuff is almost like a science. You can like
It's like
and
a
you're-
formula.
yeah, and you're almost so limited for time that the great ones know how to stuff. Like that's why the great characters will be able to, and the actors, there'll be so much going on. You'll know a character in a film like in the 2 minutes of a scene. You'll go, how do they do that? It's because they'll pack in a lot of backstory and thinking about it. before they even shoot something. That's what's amazing about movies, actually. Yeah.
Boy, Billy, I don't know what else there is to talk about tonight. I mean, I think that's about all that
Well, we
I
covered
had ready.
some fun ones, and we definitely want to have to come back to this topic again, the idea of the film alternative take on it, because that movie that we mentioned earlier, I mentioned it, and that is Wizard of Oz.
Mhm.
There's some wild. Have you seen Wizard of Oz? You've seen it, right?
Yeah, of course. What do you think? I'm a dodo?
I mentioned the theory that they think, the cute theory that maybe the Glinda the Good Witch is actually like the bad witch. You know, it's kind of a fun one, but I like the idea of more the theory that someone like the wizard himself has more to do with capitalism and more of like a heady PhD theory on it, and like maybe even the writing. But I think that the idea of watching a movie with a different take on it is certainly fun, especially when it comes to movies you've seen so many times, you know, because you go, wait a sec.
But, you know, and then again, there's on the other side of the coin, Billy, there is something to say. So let's say that you created The Sopranos. Okay. And I've heard, I haven't watched it. I heard that the last scene is Tony Soprano sitting in a restaurant and just goes black.
They get offed. That's the theory.
What is it? The theory, or does it just end there? And he sees his daughter, and I don't know. I haven't seen.
That's the theory of it.
That's the theory. So, but the director or the creator has never straightened it out. He never said no. That was him being killed. He's never said anything. So he's left it up to people to interpret.
And in the case of that show, and because of television the way it is now, that director did that on purpose and wants to leave it open on purpose so that you'll never know. And that's fine because I mean it's just a TV show, right? But whether or not you like the idea that he was killed or not, the show ends on an aggressive note, and that is somebody walks into the restaurant, right? So, and it's a show about mobsters, and the idea that you killed either way, like it's to me it almost seems like a disappointing ending. Going back to the idea that endings are the toughest thing. Endings are really as someone who has written scripts, and if we look at films in general, man. The ending of stuff is always tough. A movie can start out great, but how many times have we seen a movie and it starts out great and then the ending is kind of Endings are tough. I mean, if you can almost get the ending first, then that's where the great kind of movies sometimes are. Like that was the genius, going back when we think about it now, M. Night Shyamalan, right? His first movies were great because the endings were so powerful. You go back and then... You know, it's kind of formulaic.
I think you're right. It was the ending. The ending is what wrapped it all up. All right, Billy. Well, speaking of wrapping it all up,
shall we wrap this up? Dave, we have got someone who's been peeping in the window at us as we've been podcasting. The on-air sign's going, and they were peeping in here. They kind of freaked me out at first. I didn't scream or anything, but they're real tall. Look, they're peeping in now. Look at them, Dave. Look.
Oh, my God.
Looks like a kind fellow.
Oh, shoot.
They're probably going to want to come on in, so we'll wrap up this podcast. Thank you, everybody. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe to the podcast feed. And if you're catching us out on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. And we will be back next week with another topic. We're going to continue on. And we'll probably open up the Comedy Vault next week. And a bunch of other stuff. It's been a kind of a long day. We did the radio, and now we're wrapping up this. We got a visitor here to the Dave Cave.
So I guess we should get out of here, Billy. So let's go ahead and hit the outro. I don't know which one it is. I think it's this one.
Well, try one and either one. And
all right, 1080 After Dark. Billy, be sure to tell them what do they need to do. Subscribe.
Hey guys, hit the subscribe. We do appreciate all the new subscribers as we continue to grow the channel. We appreciate getting the word out, and any feedback is appreciated.
All right, Billy. So with that out of the way, we are going to say thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe, and we will see you all next week.
Yeah.
To contact 1080 After Dark, email info@1080afterdark. That's info@1080afterdark. Text and voice messages can be left at area code 831-218-5726. That's area code 831-218-KSCO.